pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business will be to approve the minutes from last week. We do not have Thursday in front of us yet. Waiting on that. Will that be today, Denise, you think, or we do it later?
I have no idea, probably next week.
Okay. So these are Monday, December 28th meeting minutes.
We don't usually get them that fast. I mean, we're closed Friday, so we haven't.
Oh, yeah, never thought of that. Okay. Need a motion to approve Monday's minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Kim has moved in a second. I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Oh, Don wasn't here, he was saying, so 4-0. My apologies. Well, the health department is next. Oh, I do have a consent, or
Miscellaneous.
miscellaneous motion, excuse me. Upon the recommendation of the Lake Region Solid Waste Authority, move to approve resolution number 779-I. A resolution adopting the Lake Region Solid Waste Management Plan.
This came through correspondence a
Yeah,
couple weeks ago, and then I also sent it out to your email. It was a pretty big document, but it's in here today.
basically, I read through the Coffee County's portion of it and saw no issues. The rest of it would be up to the other individual counties, the way I interpret it.
I think it's basically, I just got through reading the Coffee County part, basically saying it's what we've done
Yeah.
on an annual basis. Also move that we. I'll second.
Don has moved, Fred has seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Now we're on.
You can pass that.
Okay.
I'll go check with the health.
Well, we got a little bit of time here. It says, 9:45, we're to appoint a new 911 director. Donna brought up a good point that maybe it should be up to the new, maybe some input from the new sheriff, which I did text him, and he gave me a suggestion of what he was planning on doing next week, because his health is not the greatest today, so he's just avoiding the public, so I guess I mentioned that. But anyway, you did have a recommendation. I'm assuming you can wait till he gets here next week. I don't know that to be a fact.
The only thing is, I believe when Tasha was here, she said by statute, we had to have one appointed before then.
Okay.
So I would check on that.
Well, again, I do have a recommendation from Tim Johnson, so I'll state that name when it's time, and we'll take Linda.
Good
Morning.
morning, everybody. Today is my first day back, so bear with me. I have been home sick for quite a while. Finally recovered and back at it. So I apologize for being absent through the holidays, but I was still working from home as I could. Last report we gave for COVID, we had 28 active cases. I think when we left on Thursday, we were down to 22. So numbers were definitely going in the right direction. Now we know with the Christmas holiday, we can expect a spike. We're prepared for that. And we will carry on as we usually have through that. I think it's safe to say that COVID is endemic now in our community. We know it's here to stay. We know it can't be controlled. It's a virus. You can't stop a virus. We're still doing everything we can, but it is what it is. It's just going to be part of what we have to deal with now. As a community, we probably need to make some decisions about what that means and how much more resources we're going to be putting forward on this, knowing that it's here, it's like the colder flu, it's normal now, that's just what it is. So we'll be talking to Dr. Sawyer today, hopefully about if he wants to make any changes about the stuff that we are doing in our office, because we are still continuing to call our positives every single day, check on them. Does he want us to do that? He's never mandated us to do that. We're legally not bound to do that. Is that something we could let go? So we'll be talking about that to see. We have made an application to KDHE to be able to get the vaccine in. I will tell you, we will have to contract staff outside of our staff to be able to give that vaccine because my staff is not comfortable with that. It's a new technology. We've never seen it before. It was only studied in 45 people before it was approved. And the companies that have made the vaccine, they don't have to, all liability is gone from them. So they have, if there's anything bad about the vaccine, it doesn't go back to them. And so, I mean, that's widely known, and that's somewhat discomforting to a nurse who has to put that in somebody's body. So we will find nurses that are willing to do that. I am not, my staff is not at this time. There are some coming out, some vaccines that actually are being right now studied on 60,000 people, and it's an older technology, so that one might be more comforting for us to give. But we're waiting on that. They're not completely released yet. But we have put our name in to be able to order it, and we will start taking steps to be able to contract with nurses who will give it. We did have some refrigerator issues over the break in our brand new refrigerator. It's not even a year old. And that's where we would we keep an overstock of supply in that fridge. And we had to move it all over to the other refrigerator. So we're making sure that that fridge is good and has a good solid temperature for 5 days like we're supposed to before we could ever get any vaccine in. So we don't have a timeline yet. They really don't give you notice when you're getting vaccine. They call you and say it'll be here in an hour or two. So it's been very chaotic watching other counties deal with this to this point, and not looking forward to the chaos that will follow while we're in the middle of dealing with the other side of COVID that we deal with every day. So as you can see, it's a very interesting time in public health. That's really all that I have right now. I can't wait to get back at it and start the new year off to see exactly, maybe you got new numbers today. So we currently right now have 21,
That's just from
the 30th, okay. We had 21 positive on the 30th, so that's what we've got.
So your refrigerator, is that something you need to get replaced? Is it under warranty, or what's the deal with it? What do we need to do?
It's only 1 year old. It appears that, and I could be wrong, that it was in a defrost cycle for some reason. So it has two different compressors. There's a different compressor for the fridge and a different compressor for the freezer. The commercial quality fridges, that's an expectation, and that's what we were looking for when we purchased it. However, the fridge was in a defrost mode for some reason. And it was spiking temperatures 3 to 4 or 5 degrees higher than what it's supposed to be, Celsius. So it's quite a jump. And so it appears, hasn't been running level since then. but we can't put vaccine in it until it's had 5 days of steady temperatures. So, well, we just need to make sure that's occurred before we can put anything else back in there. So is it under warranty? No.
September was the warranty was up.
Yeah, it could just be that it was working like it was supposed to, but it was throwing us off in the middle of the night and evening. So
You do know that you have the authority, if it goes bad, to go get another one.
right. It's difficult finding, so the good refrigerator that we've had it since H1N1 in 2009. And it has worked very well and held its own. And we tried to get an exact item the same, and the one we've purchased is as close as we can get. It's difficult buying the fridge that we want. It's just not out there, one that will last as long as our other one has. So they've quit making them, unfortunately, and changed companies. So kind of a interesting situation, but we'll make sure it's safe before we get any of that vaccine here. So
You mentioned your department's not gonna be able to do the vaccination, but yet you can secure nurses to do it.
we can
What's
contract.
the process on securing nurses? Those nurses come into the office here and do it?
They can. Mhm. We've had nurses express interest in doing
And that
that.
doesn't create any liability for them?
It might. I've
To
submitted
me, that
questions.
opens up a huge issue of liability for them as well as maybe us.
I think there's a huge liability issue giving a vaccine that hasn't been tested in a large number of people. Usually vaccines take anywhere from 3 to 5 years to be tested before they're on the market. One even took 15 years. So for this to be months and then we're expected to push it out, it's interesting and it doesn't feel good. I've asked Wade the questions. We've asked the states the
I was
questions.
gonna ask if you
Yes.
went out beyond and got
Oh, yes.
a commitment from Trust Point or Wade or someplace else.
We've asked the state of Kansas, we've asked Wade, to look into it, and they're citing the PrEP Act, the PREP Act, that, anything implemented, you're not held liable during an emergency. But, Wade is studying that further to let me know. So, I'm just passing on to him the answers that we are getting. But I've talked to Dr. Sawyer about it. If the drug company is not held liable, then is the prescriber, which would be him, if he has a standing order for us, or is it the person administering it, which would be us nurses, or is it a conglomeration of all of it, or nobody? I mean, I think it's an answer we need before we start injecting people. I mean, these are our licenses that we worked hard to get and hard to keep, and we don't want to put anything at risk,
You
so,
don't take any risk.
no. No, and it's a brand new technology. The mRNA part of it is the brand new technologies. I mean, we've never seen it before. So I think we'd be silly not to question it, so.
The PrEP Act, I've heard a little bit about it and done a little bit of research on it. I get the impression that it's only good, maybe protection for a person giving it during the pandemic. If the governor would decide that it's over, you guys are no longer, even if you were covered at that time, then you would no longer be covered.
Yeah, I don't
Is
know.
that correct, or do you know?
I don't know. Like I said, I forwarded that to Wade, and
It seems to me like there's some loopholes in that too, so.
It's one of those deals where there's a lot of unknowns yet.
it is. And then, there's not a lot of case law for it either. But are you in a greater liability for not offering it? So,
Do you have a lot of, what's the liability for regular flu vaccine? Is it different than this?
It's been studied.
yeah, it's been studied. It goes through so much more research before it's released. There is there's a tax put onto every vaccine when we order the vaccine. we are charged an excise tax, and that covers this thing called the vaccine injury compensation. And you apply for that, like we would have to report adverse events through this system. And then it goes through a court to decide if that person gets compensated out of this fund or not. So that's been in place for years. But I don't know. I don't claim to be an expert in any of that. It just feels, I'm not gonna put my license on the line for that. So I wanna make sure that it's not gonna come back to me or to my staff or to you, before we go forward with anything like that. So, just being honest here. Anything else? All right, I'll give you an update as soon as I have one.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, and I think you know a little bit about it, probably more than I do. I think it's in Nevada or somewhere. I noticed that we're all kind of wearing different masks. I think it's Nevada, Utah, somewhere out west.
Oh, Utah?
They are starting to mark people with masks.
Yes, well, I don't know, saw it on social media this weekend. There was a flyer posted that you wear a red mask if you're unvaccinated. It means you have limited travel, limited commerce, limited voting. And you wear a blue mask if you are vaccinated, and you won't have as much restricted travel, commerce, and voting. So I think we're heading down a really scary path for public health to be involved in such things. There's also a bill being voted on today in New York for the government and public health officials to be able to place people in detention facilities if you have COVID or have been exposed to COVID or might have been exposed to COVID. So we're heading down some very scary paths that, again, I don't feel comfortable being involved with. So if it comes to that in our great state, you can expect some changes in your health department administration. I'm not going to be putting people in camps.
I do have one more question.
Yeah.
If there's someone out there that wants to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
And they are giving vaccinations in another county, can they get that from another county?
As far as I understand, yes. Right now, the vaccine everywhere is not open to the general public. It is only for healthcare workers right now, and even specific healthcare workers, high-risk healthcare workers. And so right now, when we looked at our priority groups in Coffee County that meet that criteria, those were being handled either through Coffee Health System, they received an allotment and gave some vaccines, or through CVS and Walgreens for the nursing homes. So it appears that everyone that meets that first level of criteria is being covered through somebody in Coffee County. Now, when you start getting down to the level 1B, what they call it, I'm not sure that those can be covered elsewhere or are being covered elsewhere, but we put our, like I said, we put our name in for that, and we're trying to make plans to be able to do that. So it can still be offered to the people that want it and need it. It just won't be through our actual staff. We'll contract that out. So, and we do that for all kinds of services anyway, so it's nothing new to us. So. Yep, thanks.
Keep up all the good work, ladies.
Thanks, we're trying.
That's different. They don't know some of that stuff.
Lindsay, I do have one more question.
Sure.
We, I think we're one of the few counties around that have been basically 24/7 contacting everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a requirement?
No,
Is that something we want to take a look at?
that is something we're gonna talk to Dr. Slater today about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what have we basically done in health other than COVID for the last year?
Not a lot. There's been some birth control, some baby shots, but this has been our focus since March.
Just curious.
Yep.
I've talked to a lot of other commissioners around other counties, and they don't do this. Let's think about it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wayne?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Construction zone.
Is your mic on
That's not
No,
there. Screen.
there? Okay.
Keep my glasses from fogging.
how do you do that?
Yeah, then I can't read. Can't see. No road permits, no zoning permits, doesn't report the lane, so if they were not open this weekend. Thank you. You have some discussion on a gun safe, and then I would like to talk about construction zones. The gun safe is, basically, we had done a, rebuild on one of our John Deere motor blades. And so as we were doing this and going through this process, we were not aware of any promotional, neither was the salesman at this point. But John Deere came back later and advised the salesman that since we had done that rebuild, that there was a gun safe that John Deere was promoting. And actually, according to their flyer, had actually expired in 2017. But somewhere or another, they still had a gun safe that they were going to give out. And so since we had done the rebuild, there was a promotional for a gun safe. Well, according to policy, that would go to the health department to be distributed as prizes and such, but as significant of a promotional that this gun safe is, this would be like a 6 foot tall gun safe. This would be something you put in a very secure location, but it's about 500 pounds too. So I contacted the sheriff's office and asked Randy if it'd be something that they could utilize. He said it would be, but it would still be up to you on how you want to, or you want the gun safe delivered. So that's where we're at. That's the discussion I have. And here's the flyer, the information that we have on it. Besides the gun
Well,
safe.
500 pounds plus, it's evidently fireproof
Yes, sir.
to a point.
So it's a good sized gun safe. It's probably somewhere between $600 to $800 if you go and buy one. So it's just a little bit more than what we would normally get as a promotional or gift, but that's what we have. So my question is,
I have two thoughts on it. One, we can refuse it.
Yeah.
Two, since they want to give it to the county, and since the sheriff department is the place that ought to probably be and can be used by county, that would be the place for it to go if we did accept it. But I think it'd be kind of a vague question, but I think those are probably our two options. Because I don't think we really want to give it to the health department and give it away as a deal. But, so,
I think there's too much value to go through the health department, just give it one
so
individual.
I
I think Bob's right.
I
It's
suggest
probably,
we talk to Wade and see.
yeah, probably be a weight question to start with, and allow him to direct us where we need to go.
Because our policies says that individuals will not take. It doesn't say that departments, and this department has nothing to do with John Deere anyway. So it's not like they're gonna go out and buy John Deere cars. So,
Yeah. Once again, we're not aware of it at the time, and the salesman was not even aware of it. So with that being said, I will pass that on to Wade, and then he can give you direction or make the recommendation. Construction zone. one I'd like to just talk about or visit about basically our snow and ice activities that we had. Jeff was able to call and we had well over 24 individuals that did accept the call to come in and work. We had also several others that were waiting to get the call to come in and work. As we had our blade operators on standby, we did not know how much to expect as far as the snow or how much of the wind that we would get for the drifting. So the blade operators were ready as well. So we had 2 shifts on Friday, starting at 4:30 and completed around 9:30. With those 2 shifts, we had 7 trucks running. We had 1 truck break down, so that slowed us up on one of our routes. Actually, it was a plant route. And then we had 4 trucks come in on Saturday, just knock it back a little bit further and allow the weather to take hold and get the rest of it off the road. So we also see on our gravel roads that basically with all the moisture and the dry conditions we had up to that point, and now with the moisture we have, that we're going to be doing a lot of work on our gravel roads. Our blade operators were instructed to go around and visit their territory, keeping in mind they have approximately about 100 miles. Some of them have close to 120. And so they'll view their territories and see what actually needs to add rock and see what needs to be bladed or what can be bladed. And those will be the activities they'll be working on. Our trucks will be working on hauling the rock, and they'll be also working on cleaning the trucks from all the salt and debris. So from the construction zone, as you can see, we have a plan for a new entrance, Old 50 in Dobbin. We're doing brush control, something we normally do for the year, this time of year. So, and as stated, basically our snow and ice, our blade crews will be working on the snow removal and brush as well, and then just countywide maintenance for our sign group. So. And for folks to understand, we have 228, almost 220 miles of asphalt. And as I said, we have about approximately 100 to 120 miles for each one of our 8 territory blade operators. So quite a bit of roads to be going over. That's all.
This still holds true. Weekends and holidays when we have storms. Question, all those cones that we got for Old 50, what are we gonna do with those? The ones that we have removed now?
All the what?
The cones?
The cones. Right now, they're placed back in storage.
Do we have a plenty? I know the city of Burlington indicated they might be interested in some of them if we want to sell them. They don't want to pay new prices, but if we had some that we might want to, they might be interested in purchasing some of them.
Well, I haven't heard that, but if they do
Well,
have.
I'm telling you now, so you have now, so.
If they need of it, they can give us a call and we can sure help them out as we have with all the cities.
But I mean, they just kind of thought maybe they'd like to purchase them so they would have them. Some of, if that's something that we're not using.
We'll be reviewing basically what we're gonna do for the long term of the cones.
Okay,
We haven't done that.
just something to keep in mind of, because they've expressed some interest.
Yes, that'd be fine.
Bob last week brought in a newspaper article from Garnett about hauling solid waste over here because it was cheaper than doing it yourself.
Yeah, it's upstairs. It's up my desk upstairs.
They had paid 40 elsewhere and it was only 24 here. I mean, are we up to date on our landfill fees here?
We've had several discussions at different times, and I believe you can recall one probably about 6 months ago, maybe 8, that I brought up the pricing of where we were at for our landfill. And we also had done where we had called around to the other counties. And so discussions we have, we're lower than any other surrounding county. There's no question. if you'd like us to come back and give you some numbers, we can sure give you some numbers on that.
Do we have a separate rate for out of county as opposed to in county?
Yes, sir.
And how much higher is it than in county?
Let me take a look, see. Our numbers.
And is there a problem if we do raise it and don't get all this from out of county? We're just not filling our landfill up as quick.
And that would be another question before I forget, and I know you're getting a lot thrown at you, but, when you take in the life expectancy of the cell, does it include transfers from other counties?
Well, as you say, there's a lot being thrown here, so I have a lot of information that I can throw to that's been going around for years and things I've discussed. When you build a cell, you place a 2-foot clay liner, you place
The question is the life expectancy of that cell? We know how you build it. We've heard all about how you built it.
yeah,
The life expectancy of that cell, is that just from Coffee County waste, or is that from waste from other counties as well?
if I can, I'll answer your question immediately right now on that particular one, but if I can, allow me to elaborate just a little bit so you have some more background information. Our cell life expectancy is all waste that basically crosses the gate. So regardless if it's in county or out of county, it's all waste. We approximately somewhere around 7,000 tons a year.
Okay.
Our life expectancy right now is 30 to 40 years. Okay.
Of that back to that 7,000 tons, how much of that's out of county? How much is in county?
I would have to get that information for you.
Okay, would you?
I would. But the thing what you're needing to look at, discussion I've had before, is that high density polyethylene plastic liner that we place on top of that clay. That only has a life expectancy of about 20 years. Okay. With all the heat that basically generates at the very bottom of the cell, little pinholes start developing through that poly liner. And so having our landfill to basically go beyond 30, 40 years, what you're doing is you're placing that leachate on top of that clay liner. Okay. We're one of the few landfills right now that are not in mitigation regarding groundwater. Okay. But the longer that we allow ourselves to exist to their design capacities, the more potential we'll have later on. Now, 14, 15 years ago, we had several industrial haulers that hauled to the county. And if you look back at the records, you'll find actually our income enterprise fund coming in from the gate was much higher. But since those haulers actually are doing their own private hauling or transfer station, our waste has went down considerably. But our landfill stands right now for mostly in-county use. That's the main purpose of the landfill.
Right.
Yes, it's ours, but according to this article in the Anderson County paper is Anderson County is planning on, at the rate that we're going, it's a lot cheaper and economical for them to send everything to Coffee County. I don't think our citizens, Coffee County, should be paying for a landfill to support Anderson County.
Or any other
And I'm
county.
gonna have some conversations with a couple of commissioners over there, because I know them fairly well.
And that's the discussion that you have to have. I mean, that's the discussion you need to have as far as what your rates need to be. I mean, if you're wanting out of county waste to fill the landfill or not. So.
Well, we don't need out of county waste to exist, do we?
At this point, I'm going to answer two questions. One is you asked for the out of county solid waste is $24 a ton.
Right.
Under resolution. In county waste is $15 a ton for solid waste. Do we need to have out of county waste? I go back to, you need to have additional waste because the life expectancy of the cell is going to be considerably longer than what its design capacities or capabilities are. That's what you're going to be dealing with. All right. You are also looking at each year you have to show, which right now I believe you are creating a savings account, but what you're needing to do is also have funds available for a portion of the landfill that's open, that you're needing to set aside for closure.
I guess, to rephrase my question, financially, do we need out-of-county waste?
Right now, at this point, your gate fees are paying for the operation of the landfill. That deals with, for the most part, at this point, our current stream is paying for the employees, the utilities, fuel for operating the equipment, and that's about it. Everything else, now, I'm just listing right off the top of my cuff where we're at. Everything else is paid from the general fund. Okay, so the funds that you provide to pay for, now some of our maintenance comes from that budget, but the majority maintenance, big maintenance items on equipment or purchase of equipment comes from general fund. But the landfill's operation, when you look at its cost, most of it is services. It's basically employee services, putting the waste, compacting the waste according to the statutes, to the regulations.
I guess my point is that if it costs them $40 or $45 to go somewhere else, why are we doing it for 24? Why aren't we in the ballpark of 35 or something like that? Maybe it might be okay to be a little less, but we're almost cutting it in half. Looks like we're almost out advertising here. Bring all your trash to Coffee County.
I think our last resolution was somewhere around 2008, 2009, that raised the out-of-county fee.
We talked about this 6 months ago, and we decided not to do it. I don't know whether we decided or not, but we took no action.
Yeah.
So I understand where we're coming from. We need to probably get that rate up. But at what level, maybe we need to know exactly what other counties are all charging. Allen County's not in our 6-county area. It'd be nice to know what Allen County or the Southeast Regional, I think they call it. See what, I remember 6-8 months ago, we talked about these fees, and yet we took no action. So maybe it is time we take some action.
But when we were talking about those 6 or 8 months ago, is because they came in and they had a special, somebody wanted to bring some stuff in at a special rate. And we said, no, we are not going to go below what we were charging.
That's the only conversation I remember.
Yeah. So we really didn't discuss raising these. We discussed not going below.
You're correct, but that is a time we could discuss it if we wanted to. So it looks like it's got to the point where we probably need to do some discussion.
There's a lot of things to consider when you're looking at running the operation of the landfill. One of it is the design capacity, okay? The other is too that by the regulations, whatever waste you have for the day has a daily cover requirement. And so what they have to do on that is either cover it with the canvas that we have purchased, or they have to cover it with 6 inches of dirt, okay? So whatever waste you receive, when you look at much larger operations per se, you can really see the extent of it. But if you had considerable more waste, and I put 6 inches on top of 3 foot of waste, or I put 6 inches of dirt on 1 foot of waste, was more economical. So there's big factors in running the operation, and there has to be a balance. It can't, if I may, it can't be just because we don't want out-of-county waste. We have to look at what is the best for the operation of the landfill? What is the capacity of the landfill?
I don't think any of us are saying we don't want out-of-county waste. I'm saying is, maybe we are too cheap and we can generate some more revenue by raising the rates.
And you'll find basically our rates are considerably lower than anybody else in the surrounding area.
Well, I basically agree with what Tom said. We need to take a look because we just don't want to be the place that Coffee County just takes and basically pays us to take it. So so I don't wanna be that.
Yeah, I mean, we already know it, your life expectancy of your cells shortened, I would assume, so if it continues that, down that path, so.
I don't know what the waste, waste has been in 18 and 19, but in 2017, our waste in 17 is the lowest it has been in 5 years. So evidently, what's coming into our county, or what we're dumping in landfills evidently, less than what it's been for a number of years, but it doesn't show 18 and 19. I probably should know what C and D stands for. What's C and D?
Construction demolition.
Because that's a third of our waste.
Construction debris, yeah.
Okay, that's a third.
You had that hailstorm.
There's four counties that don't even list C and D. In our construction material, it's also the lowest it's been in 7, 8 years. So I think it is time we need to evaluate some dollar figures, see where we're at compared to other counties.
Well, please don't take my discussion to say I don't disagree with you.
No.
I totally agree with you as far as evaluating our rates. It's something that we've been talking about as well. Our rates are the lowest in the surrounding area. We need to take a look at them. Mine is to give you a bigger picture of all the other things that basically involved in the operation of the landfill. Things that need to be considered as well.
I think we realize that we've been taking out of county, and probably the little we've been taking hasn't been effect, but when you got a neighboring county who starts advertising, they're gonna start sending everything from their county over to our county, then it makes us aware of it, and that's when we need to start taking a look at it.
At this point, we're not aware of that county. Greenwood County at this point was the only one that, not Greenwood, Woodson County. Woodson County was the only county that would actually haul into it on a regular basis. And that was just the northern part as I understood it, because they were hauling the rest of it to Iola. When you look at Iola's operation, it's out of an old rock quarry. Now ours is out of an old rock quarry too, but theirs is an operational rock quarry. So what they're doing is, as they're removing the rock, the landfill is actually growing into the rock quarry. And they're removing their own rock for the roads and such as that. So, and so they became more of a regional type landfill. So at this point, all good discussion, and please just take my comments as just giving information.
Yeah.
I am in agreement with you as far as reviewing what the rates are and get your recommendations. Mine would be is to provide you what those rates are in the surrounding counties and maybe give you a target to shoot at and then let you decide what you'd like to do. But ultimately, it goes through a resolution that you approve.
Right. I'm a week.
Okay.
Any further discussion on
All right, thank you.
that? Thank you. Appointment of a new 9/11 director. I guess according to statute, it has to be determined today. I'll go back to, again, I spoke with Tom Johnson via text. He gave me a recommendation, so I don't know if this is a Wade thing or.
I will.
Shouldn't it be just a temporary appointment until we make a final decision after our new sheriff gets on board?
His conversation is he was planning on doing it next week, on his phone today, so. And he said according to resolution, it has to be done today. I do not know if a temporary can be established based on a text conversation.
That could be a Wade's question, but it may be something they have to do some discovery on
I think it's
too.
a weight question.
Well, I'm assuming you're contacting Wade as we speak. I'm assuming he's in the area today, so we can bypass that till we talk to Wade, I guess. Everybody agrees with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, with that, we can take our break. It'll be a little early, but unless somebody else got something to do. Or bring to the table.
Take a break in the hard Brandon and see if he's available earlier.
What do Do that too.
Because we'll still be about 15 minutes ahead.
Pete, you go out and party over December 31st?
No, I didn't even make it to dinner.
I wasn't planning on it until Jeremy invited us down. Oh, Jeremy, I'm sorry. You're behind that pole. I probably should have asked you if you had something for us, but you're here.
Yeah, Terry had me on the agenda, but if I'm not on the agenda, then,
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all
Well, as soon as we get down to break, how about we just?
Okay.
Next, I'm sorry.
that's all right.
I didn't see it on there, so.
Is it on there?
No,
Oh, okay.
and you were behind the pole, so I kind of forgot you were.
That's all right. Terry had just put it on my calendar at 9 this morning, so maybe she just wanted me to come listen.
Did you have something to share with us?
I was just gonna give you guys some broad financial and vaccination updates is
Okay.
mostly all I was gonna give you.
Well, when everybody gets back to break, we'll go
That's fine.
get you up there.
There he is.
Where's the man of the hour?
You may want to leave.
You get my text, Wade?
I'm sorry?
Did you get my text? About the 911 director?
Says, I guess according to statute, we had to appoint a 911 director. The new sheriff is unavailable today. I spoke to him via text. He had his recommendation, which he was gonna do next week. So can us run it through this week? Or can we do a temporary till he gets here next week?
And you could do the, I guess, do an interim like you have with everything else, but if that's going to be the person, but,
That's who he is suggesting.
right. And I was aware of that.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's just waiting until he officially
Took
took the
off.
reins.
In other words, we didn't want to take any action on it until we spoke to you, but make sure we're doing everything as needed.
Sure. So Randy came in and,
Not yet. I just texted him and asked him if he could come up sooner because they're running ahead of schedule. And he said yes.
Well, now that I threw Jeremy in the mix, it might be not so ahead of schedule, but everybody will be ready. So,
and because it's just a week, I think, and temporarily doing an interim, just do interim, and then the new sheriff will like to make it official.
okay,
Would probably be the cleanest way to do it.
okay.
So just move to the one meeting as the 911 director until further notice.
Got a mess you got on, please.
Until the new sheriff.
Great.
Yeah.
Not red or blue.
No, they're blue.
I'm just saying, the new sheriff takes off.
What's happening in Utah as far as vaccinations?
Oh, and it's him saying
Mask indicates what you are and where you can go and what you can do.
be here full time.
Okay.
The state, I think it was the state of Ohio, when you have to do a drive,
Okay.
they change your
But we need to do it after. our
driver's
executive
license
session.
plate to a certain color.
Probably. Like last
Or
time.
even,
So it'd be like a red license plate.
you
I
know,
don't know if they still do that, but
so they don't have. to-
1.5.
Okay, well, if they're here, then we'll do it then. How's that?
But that's all.
And we're going to do it.
Okay, sounds good. And if we're not down here, can't tell him if he to be down here until.
7 minutes. By the time Jeremy gets done, the sheriff gets done. No, there you go, Joe, 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Just guess.
Okay.
20 to 30.
Really not investigated.
I did get that.
I just want to make sure Jesse got these, because he'll be involved in that, and just make sure we, if people are still interested.
Yep, we did.
How are you, sir?
Is all I wanted to do,
Go fly with you.
which I can visit with her when I get.
You know, if I was in Anderson County, the commissioner over there, I'd be doing the exact same thing they're wanting to do.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Wouldn't blame them a bit.
Well, they can't afford to build it, build itself. They couldn't afford to get involved in it.
Well, we're not saying take advantage of the situation, just because we need to generate more revenue. Everybody's kind of back from break. I was gonna bring Jeremy, hospital administrator, up, but Wade's still in. I did speak to Wade about,
Everybody,
Wade's coming in.
or Jeremy.
hey, Jeremy?
Yes.
You wanna come on up?
Yeah, if you guys are ready for them.
Sure.
Sorry, we didn't get on the agenda, but we'll make sure that we're on probably the first Monday or so of every month. That way I can give you guys a little bit of an update after our monthly board meetings have taken place. This is kind of the first one I'm actually bringing any financial information, so it's kind of more broad, this first go around. Just wanted to give you guys kind of an idea of the hospital, and we haven't presented our December information yet. We've just done our November financials, so I'll go briefly over that as well. But before I go into that, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of high-level information on our vaccinations and what we've done at the hospital and the nursing home. Lindsay kind of gave you guys a little bit of that information when she was speaking. But hospital employees, we did receive the first dose. It was the Pfizer brand that we got first. It's 100% completely voluntary. We actually received 85 doses, but in each vial there was an extra dose that was authorized for us to use. So we were actually able to give 95 doses in that first Pfizer round that we gave. After that, this last week, we received 100 doses or 10 vials with 10 doses in each vial. At the Moderna brand, which if you guys are familiar with the reading on that, it's not required to store as cold of temperatures as what the Pfizer one was. We don't really get to pick and choose which one we're receiving. We're just receiving them in. We have about a 28-day storage time frame for the Moderna compared to about 110 hours is when we had to use that Pfizer one because we don't have that cold storage capacity. So we are slated to give the Moderna administration of the vaccinations this week to about 100, again, volunteer staff, which will get us about 2/3 of the staff at the hospital. Everybody's been real on board with taking the vaccination up to this point, so I think that's good news. We were able to also do all but one of our nursing home residents at Sunset Manor. So only one didn't want the vaccination. And those were administered by CVS Pharmacy and Walgreens, as Lindsay alluded to this morning. So we're actually not even in charge of that administration piece. The one thing that I've noticed on these is that we'll only receive like a day notice, if that, before we get the vaccination in. One morning we got a call about 8:30 that around 10 o'clock we were going to receive the vaccine. And I think that was the last time that Lindsay and I met. We were actually in our meeting whenever they called and let us know that our vaccine was coming. So I guess you just have to be flexible and adaptable when they say it's coming, because the countdown begins, whether it's 110 hours or 28 days. From what I have heard on some of the calls that I've been on with KDHE, and we have weekly calls, there was a significant amount of study that was put into this, but as we know, there's no long-term knowledge as to what some of the vaccinations may or may not have as far as side effects at this point, because of the fact that it's not been around long enough, like Lindsay said. But I was under the impression from some of the call information that I'd received that a significant pool of volunteers had taken place for both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccinations, somewhere in the numbers of 40,000, not 45 people. So I don't know where that information comes from, but I think between Lindsay and I, we can get that information. Definitely nobody wants to push anybody to do something that they don't want to do. And that's one of the reasons why that this is a volunteer thing, and also that all the vaccinations are given with a consent, just as they would with the flu vaccinations, that it's a consent waiver of liability. So we gave those out to all of the employees, as well as all of the nursing home residents that have received the vaccination up to this point. Like she said, we're not doing any public or community numbers at this point yet. From what I heard on some of our calls, it's probably in the springtime, somewhere around maybe March, April. But as that time gets closer, I think it will maybe give us at least a day notice. So hopefully maybe more than a day. Other than that, we did receive the Moderna, like I said last week. There's a couple of other AstraZeneca and Novavax, as well as Johnson & Johnson, are also trying to do studies and trying to get their emergency use authorization approved. So a lot to come with regard to vaccinations, and I know we want to talk to Wade as far as liability goes when we do the community vaccinations, to make sure that we're not putting anybody in jeopardy there. So regarding the budget, as to be expected, financial information for the 2020 year, our revenues have been down about $2.8 million compared to our budgeted figures. We had some really good months in October and November, though, so the end of the year has helped out a little bit in achieving our closer to our budgeted figures. Some of the things that Juanita, our CFO, and I have been working on is taking a look at what our days of cash on hand are compared to some of our expected or desired amount. And up until the pandemic, at least, when we received a little bit of money from the federal government on our CARES Act grants, we were sitting between 12 and 14 days of cash on hand, which is pretty low in my opinion compared to where we probably should be. In order to be comfortable in a healthcare setting, especially one, to the size of what Coffee County health system is, probably a minimum of 30 days cash on hand would be good. Right now, we are sitting up with our cash on hand simply because we do have some of those grant funds sitting in our account. As you guys know, that money is intended for this emergency that we're in right now. And most of those monies are either going to be spent, and whatever isn't spent is going to be asked to return. So at some point in time, whenever that time comes, we will be probably sending some of those funds back if it's not spent. So we'll be able to further evaluate our cash on hand days at that point in time. But I kind of wanted to give you guys a high level overview of where our numbers were year to date so far for 2020. And then as we go in the next upcoming months, we can talk some more about specifics. And we're preparing our 2021 budget still. Not really going to be able to use 2020 as a good indicator other than the fact that we'll know what the first maybe quarter or 2 quarters of 21 will look like, and hopefully mid-year we'll be able to get back on track to what a normal year would look like. So, you guys have any questions for me?
Jeremy, on your employees that don't want to take the vaccination now, they may take it later. But say 25% of your employees don't want to take it, or 30, I don't know where your percentages are at, too early to tell. What kind of issues does this cause you, management, CHS? Do they create any other issues because you got a high percentage of them refusing to take it? On the safety part, the health part?
At this point, not so much, other than the fact that as people may continue to contract the virus, it could continue to have effects negatively that we wouldn't have the staffing, and it could, we still would have to take precautions as far as PPE, things like that. But the information that we've been given at this point is that regardless of whether you get the vaccine or not, they're still taking the same precautions for PPE. So nothing's changed from that perspective, but maybe more so if we see that it is, 90%, 95% efficacy like they're saying that it is, then we're gonna encourage people to take it. But at that point, because it's an emergency use authorization only, the CDC and KDHE are still recommending healthcare facilities not to require it. And I don't know that anybody would want to require it at this point. So I don't see any issues other than, continuing to maybe pass the virus more so than what they would if they didn't have the vaccine.
Any questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you guys.
This guy is getting on the agenda. Do you just want that to be a standing for Sunday? Yeah.
Have a good one.
You too. Randy?
I'm not sure what type
Yep.
Is my phone?
No,
Is it? Test, 1, 2, test. Is it working?
Button green.
I'd say the battery's gone down.
Test, test.
There you go.
I'm not gonna sing.
Well, you see the red deal shows on the backside now.
I'm not gonna sing for you, so.
We went on adjournment.
Hey, I got this. This is just the written resignation on the lake director's thing that we talked about previously. I just figured maybe you probably needed something for your records, just to put in there, even though we had talked about it and verbally. You know, I just thought I'd give that to you, to put in your records. I didn't know where it turned into, whether the clerk's office, if the personnel files, or if you guys kept that.
I think I have a copy put in the file.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'll have Don
And then I'll
make a
give it
copy
to
and
Denise.
we'll make sure the clerk gets one too.
Okay. Also, I did just get to talk with Wade briefly, and so I don't know if we can or not, but can we do an executive session on the jail study concerning potential land information? There's some new information on the jail study on some potential land that's available. Instead of, I think, you know, it's one of those things that it potentially could tie into some economic development stuff as well. And so I don't know if that can be done in an executive session or not. I don't know. We used to, but I don't know if it qualifies or not. And so I'm kind of putting Wade on the spot, I know.
Let's cover what you have and I'll look into it while we're.
Okay.
I guess my thought on it is, I mean, before we go buying up land, don't we want to make sure the voters want this?
Sure. I just, before we put all the, I can do that. I can put it out there.
That's just,
Yeah.
because I thought that's where we were headed with the last meeting we had. And we were gonna get something on updating the HVAC and adding some lighting maybe here or
Right.
there, or something, get the courthouse
On the
somewhat
courthouse side.
comfortable. And then when that went to vote, once they started building the jail, then we can worry about remodeling that, so.
Okay.
That's the way I understood it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it all goes hand in hand because we've got to have numbers before we
Sure.
take it to the people. We've got to have numbers, and
Absolutely.
if we've got to acquire land, we need to know potentially what it might cost to acquire it.
Right. Well, I can just put it, I can put out what I discovered through the city of Burlington is what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put it out there. The city of Burlington, I was contacted by the zoning administrator, Jimmy Huguenin, and I wasn't aware that the city owns land south of town that is, it's, what do you want to call it?
Industrial park.
Annexed into, and it's an industrial park. Number 4 is what they call it, which would be south of the vet center. I do have a map. I don't know.
I thought the cement company bought that.
No, they went behind, the county one.
Oh, okay.
They were gonna purchase it, but they go.
Okay.
They switched up their idea. A new penny plant.
Oh, okay.
Now, obviously, I've done some stuff on here just to kind of show. Maybe I can put that on there for you, but, there's approximately 20 acres.
You're talking about that fescue field there, Bel Air here.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
you're talking about.
Doris
Yeah,
McBride.
Yeah, wide open place.
Yes, yes, and, running through the center of it, it currently is the overhead electric.
Mhm.
And there's water that runs through there as well. This is the north right here, and there's water that runs through it. Jimmy Huguenin made me aware of it and wanted to know if it might be something the county would be at least interested in, because they've had nothing to develop it, that there's been no interest in the past. And that, it's plotted out, and I'll leave this map for you guys. It's plotted out, for industrial use. And, they've got it plotted out in like lots or whatever. And then with streets, what would be streets and development wise, it potentially could be a good fit. It could potentially develop some stuff out there that hadn't been developed economic development wise, because if you build if down the road you consider building a judicial center with that will come some development. I firmly believe that. Is it gonna happen on its own? Not on its own, but like a convenience store type thing. Because the judicial center, you have people in and out of jail, you have people visiting, all these things. I think there's some things that could happen. Obviously, that doesn't pay the bills or make things happen. I just wanted to throw this out here to stimulate some thought about it that we hadn't considered before, because I didn't know this land existed.
I find that interesting because actually I had, in a sense, proposed that land, and I went and talked to the city, and they told me that the cement company was purchasing that land.
Right.
But we've discussed it. Those utility poles can be moved.
Right.
The sewer can be moved, whatever it needs to be, the water system. And if you think about it, it's a very short distance over to the city's lagoons.
Right.
Across the highway. It's on a highway. It's accessible. It already has basically all the utilities and everything. It's basically there. I think that it's probably a better fix than the other site we were looking at, but I wasn't aware that the cement company
Apparently, the cement company didn't
do
go
it because they
through
were
with
going
it.
to.
The cement company originally was gonna build right in this area. And these are just simulated streets that I put in there to show where streets are currently plotted. But yeah, the cement company was originally gonna go in this land right here. This is where the electric this is where the electric substation's at currently. And, Jimmy has indicated that the city would wanna basically keep this area right here for the substation, electric, that sort of thing. They have water that goes through the land completely, and at some point it jogs over to those the rural water district and city of Gridley water wells.
Rural 2.
Building, yeah, rural water district number 2. Sewer is stubbed in up there by where Doug Stevenson owns. Used to be Tweed Electric, which would be south of the vet center. There's at least sewer stubbed that far south. This area right in here is pretty low. You can tell there's natural waterway through there where water travels from the west going east to the highway. And I just put it like where they currently, you could put, currently have a street go through here and could potentially tie into the state highway. I just think there's some potential there that would have to be pursued, obviously, in an environment down the road between the city and the county governing bodies is where it would fall with you guys and the city council. I just throw that out there because it allows for a lot more flexibility. Currently, the sites in town that would be available are pretty limited in size. And so the architect, in talking with him, the one piece of property, you'd have to try to finagle it, move it to fit on that property. And Jimmy did say that all this land is out of the floodplain also, which is a plus.
And I'm probably throwing the city under the bus, but when I discussed this with them, they thought that land could probably be acquired very, very, very cheap.
Again, that would be between the governing bodies.
That would be good because the expense of building those roads.
Potentially.
You'd be offsetting the cost of buying something in town.
Right.
And I doubt if the state would allow us to put a road onto the highway, but 11th Road is a good major road that could get you into it.
Right. I think at least it's food for thought to throw it out there that really puts a new light on this project. Obviously, we got to get the courthouse part done, I guess, whichever step. I'm waiting to hear back from the architect too.
See, I thought that's where we left at that one meeting.
Right.
Was to
I know he was gonna get back with.
cost estimates to get all this.
Yes.
And then we're gonna send that out for bid. And then the new jail was gonna go to voters, and then once if that got approved, then we concern ourselves.
That's what I'm waiting to hear back. I know the HVAC people, They were contacting Modern Air and they were waiting on, I believe that contact with Modern Air and stuff to make some, in order to get their cost estimates.
Yeah.
Kind of nailed down a little tighter because it was pretty broad.
It was.
It was real broad.
Yeah.
And so I think regardless, it's gonna be, a decent amount of money. But I think the county needs to know a little more narrower scope on what the cost is.
I
So,
mean, I think we can get the courthouse virus friendly, so to speak, instead of just using COVID all the time.
right. And I think that's the right word is virus, because with the recommendations they have made that I've read anyway, it not only address COVID, but it could address the flu or any other viruses by making the HVAC system more filtered and with the UV lighting in public areas where there's large gatherings of people, like the lobby, meeting rooms, that sort of thing.
Right.
Or offices where there's large numbers, maybe appraiser's office is one that usually has, some numbers there to throw that out. But I have not heard back either as to the dollars or anything yet. But I know my time is dwindling down. This was gonna be my last meeting, obviously, with the commission. And this was, just came to me, Jimmy called me, I went by, we got the map work, and so I wanted to throw that out there for just
Food for thought.
food for thought as much as anything.
Yeah.
So
You could have a point there.
And that is in the city limits of Burlington, correct?
it has, the city, is my understanding, the city annexed all that to make it their industrial park. And because this is industrial, God, I ain't got my glasses on. I believe the old, I call it the concrete building out there, the old big concrete company where Charloma building is Industrial Park 1.
I believe so.
And then I think like where Import Fittings or whatever that is right there, and it used to be the bowling alley, maybe that's 2. I'm not really sure.
I don't know either how they have the number, to be honest.
And then this was 3, or this may be 2 here, and this is 3 where bar storage is. This is 10th Road right here. And this is that gravel road that comes into bar storage.
11th Road, isn't it?
10th Road. 10th. Yeah, it's 10th. And so that's also about something that we had looked at is, you're right, you could still get access to come through off 10th Road into here. This would have to be obviously some bridge work or something done to get across that low area where there's a natural waterway there. But it's not hay or anything down there because it's pretty rough. But it's obvious, they have a road that comes over here. It was plotted for roads this way. And some other things that I'd be glad to, if there's interest in wanting to look at it after the meeting or something, hollering on. I can explain, I guess, more details. But that's as much as I know about it at this point. So kind of puts food for thought out there.
One of the last estimate, I believe, had for the jail, so it had a certain dollar amount in there for land acquisition.
Right.
So
Which, I don't know,
that was in the 300-some thousand.
right, I get to run things in my mind on ways that it could be done potentially with cost savings, by utilizing city county crews, say, initial road preparation, things like that in my mind, waterway, culvert type waterway across that low area. I mean, we got bridge crews. I don't know, I'm just thinking things in my mind to make it more affordable, which would then help economic development wise in that area that wouldn't probably happen otherwise. This is just kind of wild thinking not wild thinking, but thinking out there, what if a judicial center goes in out there, there's more than just criminal, there's more than just jail, but you have the jail, you have housing of other inmates from other facilities. So therefore you get people traveling in and out, you get lawyers there for court cases, staff 24/7. I see the potential of something along that line of a convenience store or a small cafe, maybe even a small hotel like Country Haven. People come for court cases, attorneys all the time ask, well, where's your hotel at? What, we're gonna make reservations for the 3-day civil jury trial or whatever. So at least that's from my experience with the judicial system and things that could happen. Obviously, they won't probably happen on their own. We'd have to go after it. But it's just out there for thought. I think it just puts it, no matter where the county decides to maybe go, it doesn't paint us into a box.
It's somewhat limited as it is.
Yes, it is.
We
So-
really don't want it too much of a residential area.
No. So this gets it more in the rural area with few homes that are impacted. Something else, I don't know what the political environment is for it at the state level, but once upon a time, the State Department of Corrections was looking at building a drug and alcohol treatment detention center in Yates Center, and it never happened. And the money was there at one time. I know Derek Schmidt was state senator when he pushed that through. And then the political environment, I know at that time, between the governor's office and the legislature and all that, it just didn't happen. Whether there's a potential for that to happen, I don't know. But there'd be enough land there to put one. Just another thing to think about.
Yep.
So I will leave this map for you guys just to look at and think about. If you have any questions. I also, I tell you what, I'm gonna actually have them scan this in. Kara Mays was working with me on the map and stuff, so I can send this to the architect as well. Him and I did have some just real brief discussions about this potential. And so he wanted me to go ahead and work it up and kind of be able to show him what I was talking about.
Because I know you're gonna have to build an asphalt road at least. And
I can leave that for you for now. And I actually I'll have Angie come down and get with you guys after the meeting or whatever. We can get the map and do whatever they do to scan it. Kara does the scan. She can make that look nicer than me.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, all right. And then the last thing I have is the Neosho City Cemetery. There has been some progress made. I visited with the state archaeologist on this. There is actually a lot of flexibility that he is willing to give us to try to get it in somewhat of a order or whatever, clean it up. And so with that, I mean, he would allow us to remove the headstones, to clean that off, to see what is there without even having to fool with the graves in any way. And then put the cemetery back in some order and to where it's a manageable, clean, with the headstones that are there. There's not many headstones, but I was really amazed that there is a lot more flexibility that he's willing to give us on this project. And I'm actually headed up to Topeka this afternoon to meet with him. And he's very intrigued by it. And so I think it's a project that can be completed. Obviously, I would like to continue to do it as a citizen and work with the county. And I went by the museum to talk with them the other day, and they were closed, to see if that's something the museum would be willing to try to help with on restoration of the headstones. Because they do, I've been doing some research on how to clean them and everything, because they're in pretty sad shape, but they can be cleaned and brought back together. And I think that's a project. And then there is state statutes that allow for it to be put back together, but then maintained. Terry Seaton found a resolution from 1996 that talks about something similar on a couple of old cemeteries that weren't taken care of, and then so there is precedents out there on how we can do it.
Isn't this one on private land?
It is currently on private land, however, it is a documented cemetery.
So it has to remain that way.
So it has to remain a cemetery, but it does not have to, the state archaeologist told me it doesn't have to stay exactly where it's at. And we don't have to figure out where the graves or where the people are buried. The bodies have to stay there and can't be disturbed, which is obviously very deep, so you can still work the land or do whatever. That's on the individual, but you do have to keep it in the general area. And he wants to see a map, the state archaeologist wants to see a map of the area and what we might, the landowner might be proposing as to relocation of the cemetery.
But that's what they want. Really.
Yes, and he's very,
So they follow.
and the state archaeologist was very receptive, actually, of it. Just how far is he gonna let us move it? I don't know that yet. I don't know, will he let us move it 10 yards, 100 yards, a quarter of a mile? I don't know that yet. We didn't get that. He wanted to see maps and stuff and kind of what we had at this point and stuff, but he was very intrigued, and this isn't the first time or the first county to encounter something like this. And so as a state historic, he is the state archaeologist. His words was he's very flexible on these things because he understands that it can be otherwise a very expensive proposition for anybody to try to exhume graves and all this. And he's like,
Have
we
you
don't.
ever identified how many graves are actually there?
The only thing we have documented history-wise is 8 at this point. That's it. But there's so much overgrowth in there.
I'll bet you there's a lot. It's just a guess. I bet there's a lot more in the.
Right. But he said we don't have to guess. We only have to go by what headstones are there. So if they're not there type thing. But like I told him, there's so much overgrowth and trees in there. Until we gotta be, and he wants it, he would want us to be careful in trying to clean that off so that we can get to the headstones so that they can be documented for 1, 2, cleaned up in order to be put back in a general location in that area. But I talked to Ben Spencer about it, explained to Ben briefly, they just had a new baby and stuff, and so they had a rough night, it sounded like, with the baby, and so him and I talked briefly, and so we're gonna get back together, but it's a project that at this point, it's just gonna entail my time and the county and just keeping you guys up to date on it, but if it's okay, I'd like to keep pursuing it as a citizen. I just feel like it's the right thing to do and stuff to try to clean these headstones up and work with the museum. They have the tools and stuff, I think, to do the cleaning and stuff. It's just using the right chemicals so you don't do more damage than you do good and stuff. And so there are specific chemicals to use to clean them and stuff, so.
Well, you live within a mile and a half of that.
Yeah, it's kind of.
And if you're willing to take a hold of that.
I am. This is just something.
Myself, I had no problem with it at all, just let you continue working on it.
This is just something I feel like morally that needs to be done.
You live right there in the same area.
And I am willing to keep working on it and bringing information back to the commission as we progress and stuff to see if that's okay at this point. I'll have more information from the state archaeologist, obviously, this week. And I'll put it in written form to you guys and we can go from there.
Good.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I think as a citizen, you have that right to do that.
Well, I don't. Actually, I don't. The county actually, there's some statutes that kind of puts the county in the driver's seat on it. There really is. I know. I didn't know that either, Bob. There's some things that put the county in the driver's seat and stuff, but it just has to be maintained, and how it's maintained is obviously whatever works out for everybody. And the least expense to the taxpayer would be the best. And I don't think it's gonna take much. I really don't, to get it, to satisfy the state archaeologist. I don't think it's gonna take a lot and stuff, so I'll work on that. So that's all I have.
All right.
Thanks, Randy.
All right, you bet. So,
Enjoy your return.
you bet. You bet. It's kind of bittersweet, but I'm ready. I'm ready, so. I don't need that.
Just keep me in the loop.
On the Neosho Cemetery? You betcha. Because there are statutes about, and puts the county in a certain position to have to do certain things, so. I'll definitely, every move I make, one thing in working with state archaeologists, are gonna document every step of it, as to what we do and how we do it and that sort of thing. And because I'm sure it's gonna need to be applied down the road somewhere else in some other county,
All right,
and hopefully we do it right. So,
thank you.
thank you, guys.
Well, we've got the minutes for Thursday, December 31st.
They were sent out, but I think my computer shut down on me last Thursday and they got hung up in residence.
I don't remember.
On the cloud.
Yeah,
I know we took care of 8 or 9 or 10 different resolutions. I don't remember the exact numbers or names we're moving, but also move these things to be approved.
A whole second.
Don's moved, Tim seconded, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
I think
With that, appointment of the new 9/11 director. Again, I spoke with Mr. Johnson via text. He's recommending John Moody. I know he's wanting to come in next week and get that, make that recommendation, if you will, but he's not available today, so. Can we appoint her the interim as for now?
I think procedurally, maybe doing just an interim because they need there's somebody on the ground who's actually operating in that role, and I think that needs to occur. So having an interim for a week, that in effect is the same thing. And then next week when the sheriff-elect comes before the board, I think there'll be whoever's going to be in his administration, he'll make that, he'll advise the board at that time. So
Okay.
that would be my suggestion. Right?
So I would move to appoint Don Moody as interim 9/11 director. Until Mr. Johnson takes office. Or gives us a recommendation.
I think we have his recommendation, but it ties to the documentation that will go with the new administration. So I just interim
Just move to appoint Don Moody as interim 9/11 director.
until otherwise modified or changed by subsequent motion.
What he said.
Is she the new dispatch? And when does she take office? Or when does she start that?
She has started working as a dispatcher, currently, and so Tasha's been working with her to try to show her the ropes and everything, because there is records that need to get turned over to somebody, because of there's monthly and annual reporting, to the state that has to occur because the finances involved in audits. But she's been working with her on that stuff already. So it probably makes the most sense logically. It's just learning how to do it.
Right.
She had to take some time off. Her father-in-law was recently was deceased or killed in a car wreck, and then her mother think it's her mother or something had a stroke. So she's had a pretty rough time the last couple of weeks, so. But
I'll make that motion.
Tim
I
is.
thought you made it.
I did make that motion. You're seconding is what you're doing.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I'm thinking I understood Tom was moving, but couldn't do it.
I do, I'm sorry, you're fine.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. I guess that's it. Except for roundtable, Wade. And we're gonna go into an executive session after roundtable to discuss emergency management position.
Okay. Wayne caught me and brought me up to speed about the promotional item that the county was due and owing reference some sort of product that was purchased back in 2017. So I'll need to get with Randy on that. I think Wayne had a conversation with Randy about the
oh, yes.
upright safe of some sort, so that, he caught me up to speed on that. Several things. One, based on Randy's discussion in reference to the jail judicial center study, food for thought. I think the board needs to consider, and doesn't have to be done today, to put together or appoint a committee that receives that information from the architect. I think what happened at the last setting, I didn't have the information and I'm not sure where it went. So when the architect was presenting, the first time I knew about what was being presented was as the architect was presenting it. I'm not sure what all was presented in the form. I would have rather the architect ran that by me first. So I think there needs to be a committee so some of that discussion can occur kind of behind the scenes, and so there's a group that some of that information can be vetted with. Secondary to that is the idea we're talking about sites and a building and a judicial center. But I will say I've been approached by several people in the community that have more questions than answers about what's wrong with what we have now. And that's my concern. We're, to an extent, putting the cart before the horse, and we need to get to that point before we start talking about building a new facility. And I know ideally, a new facility might be what occurs later on down the road, but it's not anybody, I guess, individually in this setting that has to be convinced one way or another. It's the entire population of Coffee County that has to decide and make the determination that that is what is necessary and needed for Coffee County and its citizens. And it's kind of the pie in the sky right now, but I don't think we're to that point. And there are some citizens who are not on board at this point because they don't feel it. For the huge price tag that goes with it, is there a way to continue on with what we have and make it work? So I only mention that because that's in my mind where we are based on just the several people that have contacted me or stopped me and approached me and mentioned it. So for every one of them, I'm sure there's others. And just wanted to put that out there.
And again, that's where I thought we were at with the architect, was we were waiting to hear back about revamping of the HVAC system, some lighting, this, and that, and the other. And then, of course, a little more discussion on the new jail, and then it would have to surely go to vote. And
Right.
Then we would concern ourselves with the rest, so.
I think having an idea of what sites are available is important because then the board knows what the options are. And I think options are important because options for properties obviously goes into cost and what it would take to make that work part of the plan. But I think what I stressed the last time when the architect was appearing by Starleaf is we need to know what it would take to make what we currently have fit. And then compare that with what the other options are. So I think that's just the missing piece
Yes.
of the puzzle. It's kind of like, in my mind, if I'm going to look for a used car versus a new car, what are the things that go into that? You know, how many miles are on it? Wear and tear, does it have good maintenance records versus a brand new one? And knowing that as soon as I drive it off the lot, it depreciates significantly. What are those figures? What's the value? So
I guess on that, I kind of have a question on that. Seems like we hired this architect to tell us what we needed to do with the jail and all that. Now all at once, he's telling us what we need to be doing with the whole courthouse system. I don't know that I really see the coordination of those two together. I think he was hired more to tell us what we need to do with the jail system and all that. I mean, it seems like he's getting way off with what we really hired him for.
I don't remember exactly when it was. There was a proposal, and I specifically remember having this conversation with the architect because initially it started out as the jail study to determine what was needed to deal with the current jail setting, and then that also encompassed the sheriff's department because it's only natural you have the sheriff's department and the jail at the same location. So, and I know right now they're sort of split, and that's its own issue, and that's more of a law enforcement presentation than it is for me, but I understand the dynamics of that. What that also turned into was a 3-part proposal for 3 different phases. One of them was for what would be needed for the current courthouse to make it COVID compliant, because when we were having this discussion, COVID was front and center, and what would that take? The second part was for the jail, the third part was for a complete judicial center. And there were 3 different figures that were presented within that document, and you could choose option 1, option 2, or option 3. Option 1 was the current building and what would it take to make it COVID compliant. Option 2 was the jail itself. Option 3 was a judicial center. And then there was a discount, if I recall, and I don't have it in front of me, if you chose all of them together, and it was either a $10,000 or $20,000 discount. I don't recall exactly. At that time, the board decided to go with option 1, 2, and 3, which would include the discount. So the initial phase was to deal with the existing building to determine what it would take to make it COVID compliant. I think that was somewhere around $19,000. The idea then, if you remember, Russell was before the board. The idea then was that it could be considered a COVID expense. It could be taken out of the COVID funds, which the state COVID review board, or whatever they're called, said that they disagreed, and I had a phone conference with them, or a Zoom conference with them, and they indicated that not only would that study have to be completed, the architectural renderings, but you would also have to have whatever it is they recommended purchased and installed by the end of the calendar year, which in my opinion was unrealistic. How do you know what you need until a professional has come in and presented to you what you need, because you're dealing with electrical components, you're dealing with plumbing components, you're dealing with HVAC and all those things. The secondary part of the whole thing was the jail portion of it, which has been worked on behind the scenes, and then Justice Center. So that's a long way of answering. I think all of the above is a part of what was agreed to with the architect. It's just being put together in phases, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I remember some of that. I think where maybe I'm coming from is that I'm like you, and I think most everybody else sitting here was, when the architect spoke to us last time, I think we were all like deer in the headlights. We nobody had any idea, and I think Randy was the same way. Nobody had any idea what the guy was proposing. Somewhere, it's getting lost, and it's not getting to the people who probably need to know that, the ones that are going to end up making the decision. So,
And I think that's why there needs to be some sort of committee. That was the initial design and approach, and I was on the committee. At that point in time, Chairman Haddock was on the committee. The Brandy was on the committee and somebody else. Somewhere there's been a breakdown in communication because I've not been getting that information. And we need to, we're in a new calendar year altogether, and that needs to be steered back in the right direction because this is important. This is a significant issue for Coffee County, not only for the immediate time being, but for the long-term future. And if it's not done right, handled right, then we all look bad, and that is something that I'm going to do everything I can to avoid. So I think at a minimum, myself and somebody needs to be on the committee. I think it would only be natural that someone from law enforcement be on the committee because the jail and the sheriff's department is a critical component of what's being done, and then go from there. I don't think today's the day that you need to make that decision, but I think it needs to be made in the very near future.
I think that's where some of the confusion came is Russell had, and I'm not throwing Russell under the bus, I think there's some confusion when the COVID thing got added and then, for the architect, what to send where and who, and it just kind of got, I think, mixed together to where it's created some confusion, and I agree with Wade. I think the reorganization of the committee and to get it back on track, it is imperative to make it work, whatever the outcome is.
And we can talk about that at a different date and time, just to get you thinking in that area. I think it's important. So the second thing I want to talk about is behind the scenes. Obviously, Lisa from McGrath had presented her recommendations to the board, or her report to the board based on the compensation salary study back in December or in November, and then subsequently additional information. There was a department head meeting that occurred in December in reference to questions or comments related to that. And where that is at this point is I recommended to department heads, whatever comments or questions they had, they put them in writing, send them to me. I will provide them to Lisa from McGrath. She's aware they will be coming, and then set up a meeting with the department heads and Lisa so that some of the questions that exist, some of the comments that are presented can be answered to the best of her ability. I don't know if she'll be able to answer all the questions, but at least that gets some of the underlying questions related to what the information is in that report answered, because I don't think I'm in a position to answer them. I don't think any of the board members are in a position to answer them, because that is what McGrath and what Lisa did. That's what she was hired to do. That's why she's in that field. It would be the same thing as me trying to give you a presentation on accounting. I don't have a background in accounting. I can tell you about criminal law. I can tell you about some of the things that go with the aspects of being legal counsel for a governing body. So that is what needs to happen. I think if a different decision is made or you handle it in a different way, you're going to have questions from department heads based on what I know that nobody here is going to be able to answer. And I think those questions need to be answered the best that they can by Lisa. So that meeting is going to be set up sometime in the next several weeks. And then from that point, I'll let the board know and you can determine how you want to move forward. Any questions on that?
No.
All right. Today is the day to, again, review the mask order. And I don't remember what the number is. It's every 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago would have been the 23rd.
2020-863.
And the last time it was reviewed was on the 22nd. I don't have a calendar in front of me. It was the 21st.
21st.
So here we are, 2 weeks later, because the way it's written, it needs to be reduced 2 weeks, which I think is entirely appropriate considering where we are and what's occurring locally, statewide, and nationally. I got a message from Lindsay, who had contacted Dr. Sawyer, and not to speak for either one of them, my understanding is, based on what was presented to me, is that no recommendations are made for any changes. So if you want any more information or more detail regarding the basis of that, again, I'm an attorney, I'm not a medical professional, so I can't give you the answer one way or another there.
If we're not doing anything different, we don't need to take any action, right?
No, just set it for 2 weeks down the road to review it once again.
Are they okay with that? I'm okay with that.
And it's still based on the wording in that resolution, which mirrors the majority of what the governor's executive order was at the time. Highly recommend all of the things that are contained within the governor's executive order, specifically the high recommendation as a strong recommendation is to wear a mask, which everybody's doing. Yeah. Everybody here. So, two more things. One, as Randy indicated, I believe this Friday is farewell tour is going away, and I just wanted to make sure he's recognized for, was it 32?
Yeah.
32 years of public service in law enforcement. I think that's significant that somebody has dedicated their entire professional career to protecting and serving the citizens of this county. It's not easy what law enforcement does. I mentioned that before. I'm a huge advocate of what they do. I don't think they get enough credit, and that people actually probably knew on the outside looking in the type of situations that they deal with, the things they see, things that are forever etched in their memories of lives lost, people they saved, they couldn't save. It's a big deal. So Randy needs to be recognized for that, and I hope the citizens of Coffee County make sure to recognize him as that. I think that's extremely important. So finally, the last thing that actually I have one more thing. There's going to be a number of policy and procedure recommendations for changes, and I think they'll be And I think there are some contained within the McGrath report as it relates to the compensation, salary study type things, for example, vacation paid, some of the other things, where people fall. One of the things I want you to be thinking about for a change, I will be recommending a change to the policy and procedure as it relates to obtaining copies of or access to public records under the Kansas Open Records Act. And where this recommendation comes into play is currently, and I think historically, the request, when someone makes a request, copies have been 25 cents, and then you have staff time. Well, now when the Open Records Act initially came out, you didn't have all the electronic media type things that we have now. It was a different day and time. You had a copier, that's just the way it is. So now we have email, we have PDF files, we have all these different versions and formats to fulfill requests. So one of the changes that I want you to be thinking about, and I'll put this in writing and submit it to you, but that physical copies of paper copies remain at its current rate at 25 cents. But for electronic copies, one of the going rates across at least the state that I'm aware of is 0.125 cents per page for electronic copies. Some of the other recommendations, 50 cents for the first 5 pages, 25 cents for additional 5-page increments. That electronic copies can be mailed or transmitted electronically. That the cost be calculated upon the volume. Fax copies at 65 cents per 10-page fax. I don't recall what the staff time is. What?
It's at $15 an hour right now.
$15 an hour, and so that people are aware, the staff time goes into if there's something that has to be researched and pulled from somewhere, the time in doing that, and what can also be charged, which
It's 15 and that's when we're paying them close to 20.
Well, that was set years ago. It was recommended that we not charge what an actual salary is, that we want to make open records be affordable to citizens. And so that was what was set years ago, and that's what we're doing.
and that's why I'm bringing it up, because if some of those figures need to be changed or modified, then it would be the time and opportunity to do it when this policy and procedure is also subsequently modified. But this time includes time spent to access records maintained on computers, review the records to determine whether closure exceptions apply under the Kansas Open Records Act, and or to redact that closed information. I think, there's times when I get involved where I have to review documents and determine whether an exemption exists under the Kansas Open Records Act. In my opinion, it would preclude transmission of that document or a portion of that document. For example, if information is requested that includes what I would characterize as protected information that would violate HIPAA, then I'll make sure that information is redacted and that we can deal with it from there. But if I get involved and I have to review the items, then there is also legal authority for my time to be included in that review as well. And obviously my time isn't, $20 an hour probably doesn't satisfy that, but I'll leave it to the board to make the determination what that time should be. In one of the samples that I have of a policy and procedure relating to the same topic from another state agency the staff time is 37 an hour. So, I mean, I think the current rate that Coffee County has is fair, and if the idea is to allow open access, then I think that's the most important component of this. So,
That was also set in 2008 or 9, I think, so it could be updated.
the last thing that I have, and we're at the time, and I think a copy of the prior county councilor contract was provided. It should have been to each of you. I request to proceed into an executive session to discuss the county councilor contract for 20 minutes. I think it's a separate contract that can be discussed. And myself and the board.
I don't think I received a copy of that.
I did not.
Okay. We can get that, we can get it to you then.
Okay. I don't have one.
It's the current contract that we're operating.
I have a copy, but you didn't ask me to send it out.
Oh, if we can get a copy then, that's my fault. I thought it was sent out. So once a copy is received, then we can, I request my same request under KSA 754319B1.
Does that need to be this week, or can that be next week when we?
I think initially this week, and it can, nothing has to be done today, but.
Needs no action today.
So,
because I still believe that we should be waiting. We have new people coming on, and they should be making some of these decisions.
Sure.
It gives the opportunity to review the
Right,
contract.
I'm willing to talk to you.
Review the contract, and I'm sure we won't have any questions on it anyway, because we'll probably adopt the same wording.
You gotta remember, he's an attorney, he wrote it up.
Yeah. He did force it up, but we don't know who wrote it. That work for you then, like.
Can't see whether Brendan or not.
Pardon?
Which part?
On your contract, or do you want to go ahead and do that today?
If we could do a short
Discussion.
I don't think it hurts to discuss right now, but.
Okay. I have no problem with discussing.
So,
Once we get the contract, then, and that's my fault, I thought it had been emailed.
Tom, since we're waiting, I know Tim's here. Tim usually doesn't walk into a room with a packet unless he has something to say.
No, I don't have anything. I was waiting for a break,
Okay.
when you guys had a break.
I'm gonna wait for Donna to get back. I have something, but do
Just
you have
pretty
anything while we're waiting?
Yeah.
Well, I just
I
want to
want to
know,
tell Fred.
how do you want to handle
Bring him
next
a card.
Monday? Do you guys want to come in at 8 o'clock?
I think that's what we decided. We decided.
What you were
to-
gonna tell me today, we're
Okay.
gonna think about it.
Everybody in agreement, come in at 8 o'clock next Monday, and then we'll approve the minutes. Then we'll
Recess.
recess
until 9.
for swearing in of the new commissioner, and then we'll have a break for donuts and coffee or whatever.
Do you guys want donuts or cookies?
Particularly. I'm okay with that, but
Nothing?
It's,
there will be quite a few people sworn in next week.
I was just gonna mention, not only the commissioner, but sheriff. I think all of the elected officials.
so it's whatever.
All but three of us.
Yeah, there'll be 10 or 12 total.
All but three.
The treasurer,
No. not
You wait till
October.
October on that?
is it still October?
Yes.
Treasurer?
So
All right,
donuts,
Glenn, I think,
It's whatever, I won't need any of
Yeah.
that, so that's whatever you said you.
don't listen to
Oh,
Paul.
God,
So you will be here at 8 o'clock, we'll recess until
Well,
9.
yeah, Tim's gotta get
And
sworn
then
in.
put that in.
No, he doesn't have to, because he's sworn in and he fulfills that expired term. So it is. That's right.
Wade, you mentioned the wage study, and of course, we've had that done for some time, but your comment or suggestion, what type of time frame are you looking at? You know, in my view, and I don't want to push nothing technically through, but in my view, the commission has done everything they were asked to do, like I made a comment 3 weeks ago. The department heads, you know, wanted a study done, and wanted to see what we would compare with another 25 different entities, and everything's been put in place. And now there's a lot of questions comes up. We'll never, and the word never is a big, big word. We'll never get all the questions answered to everybody's satisfaction. It will not be a perfect fit for everybody. And yet I hate to keep pushing this thing off and off because we've got to push back 8 months or a year now. But I haven't talked to Lisa. I think, you know, here a couple weeks ago, the department heads were going to get some questions to you. You were going to communicate with Lisa to see what her thoughts were. And this morning, I think I understood you might be looking at 3 or 4 or 5 weeks before we get the answers back to where we can proceed ahead. So I think we need to establish a time frame and not push this thing down to April or May or June again, and that's where we're headed.
So I can maybe help clear up, maybe I misstated earlier. The comments, I sent out an email this morning that comments need to be to me by Friday, or so that I can have them sent to Lisa no later than Friday morning. Then we're gonna set up a time, if it works with her calendar, for next week to meet with the department heads. We're trying to work with her calendar, and whether that be in person or by Starly or some other format, so that department heads can feel like they've had their voices heard. To me, that's important. One of the things is,
I have no problem. I think we all need to be good listeners. But I'm also one of them want to push down the road for those 3 or 4 months.
it's moving along, and the idea is to get that part of it, those questions answered sooner rather than later. I don't think the intent or design of what's happening is to delay it significantly down the road. The idea is exactly what you just mentioned, so people can, department heads can have their voices heard, so they can understand some of the things that don't make sense, because if they each come in and ask those same questions to the board, I don't think the board's in a position to be able to answer, other than say, well, on page 12, it says that Lisa can answer those. Now, is she gonna be able to answer every question? Probably not, but I think she will try.
She'd be the qualified person to go to. Absolutely.
So I think that's the intent and design behind why this is occurring this way, not to delay, but this is a significant departure from what has historically been done. So you want to make sure it's done right. And for the most part, if you don't have, you're wanting buy-in. This is what was requested initially, and understanding how, the recommendation is to scrap something in the current pay pyramid that has been in place since 1995 or somewhere in that neighborhood. And if that occurs, I think department heads need to know mechanically how this new structure works and where their employees would potentially fall and why they would fall there. And I think Lisa can answer a number of those questions. I'm not the one to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's a comment I made here 3 weeks ago, was we need to get it as right as we possibly can get right. But like I said, there's, once this thing is totally summarized and put in place, there'll still be some issues. There'll still be questions. You'll never eliminate all of them because of 150 employees, 15, 16 different departments, and it's just part of it. So,
and there's a implementation process that if today were the day And Don, you and your fellow board members decided we're gonna adopt this report, this compensation study. It's gonna take a while to get that done. And if I recall, dealing with all the different things going on with county government, doing it at the beginning of January was not realistic, even if you wanted to. So, implementation will be its own phase if that's what the board decides. Because there are quite a few significant recommendations that are different or additional. And then you have to figure out what you want and what you don't want.
And that's like Lisa told me here a month ago, you don't have to accept her proposals as 100%. You can pick and choose pieces and parts of them, or you can pick and choose none. We still got that right.
But if you have department heads who, if there's explanation into why some of those recommendations are made, and they would buy into it, unless they don't have an explanation, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
If you have 8 department heads come in and say on page 27, the recommendation for this change to policy, I don't know where it came from or why we should agree to it. And if it can be explained ahead of time by Lisa why that makes sense, then I think you're able to avoid to have questions answered that don't need to be dealt
It
with.
sounds like the time frame you're looking at is fairly current. And I understood it's gonna be a little further out when you make comment.
No.
Okay.
I'm wanting to get this part of it behind us so that whatever the board wants to do, they can take action in a reasonable time frame.
I think that a lot of this stuff, I think Lisa answered our question. My main question is what it was, when she came back and she said that our current salaries are adequate. I think she answered the question, but I think there's a lot of things now that need to be worked on. And I don't want to just jump into it and make a decision and then turn around later and say, whoops, we're wrong decision. So I agree with you. There's a lot of things to be worked out, but I think the people need to know our salaries are adequate, fair.
I don't have anything else other than I think the contract's been handed out. And if you want to take up something else before executive session, I'm fine.
I'd like to do that, yeah. Tim, you have anything
No, I don't.
Fred?
No, I don't. We have.
I'm not sure how well I am at this, but I'll give it a try. And today's Fred's last day. We have a couple of presentations for him. Thank you for that, Dan, for his 20 years of service.
You get your camera on.
20 years of service. This would be the flag for dedication and service to the citizens of Coffee County as County Commissioner from 2001 to 2021, Board of County Commissioners. And a certificate as well for given with sincere appreciation for your outstanding contributions, District Number 3 Commissioner, 20 years of service.
Can't do much better than that.
Thank you. Thank you. Fred, I've only known you 2 years. That was all I had to round table, Donna.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Well, with that, Wade, would like, or,
I think you have a comment from the
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
public.
I guess for the public, I'm here just on Fred's behalf. Spent,
Tim, you want to come on?
I can. I came today mostly I'm here only to support Fred. I mean, that's why I came today. I have no other agenda. I know your job's tough and sometimes you gotta do some things you don't like to do, but Fred's done it a long time and I appreciate it.
You know this job stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you know this job stuff?
Huh?
How do you know this job stuff?
I don't, because Bobby's made it home, I know that.
Thank you, Tim.
I just like to say it's nice to be remembered by old friends.
Anything, anybody else?
Before, when we go, can we have time to take a break?
Yes, well, I'll give you ample time to get this out there.
I'm right there with him, man.
So I've already made the request under KSA 754319B1 for discussion. It can be 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Should be sufficient.
10 minutes of it.
Also move.
Second.
Well, move, Fred, there, no one seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
10 minutes, we'll go in at 11:20. We're gonna back out at 11:30.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't think I have to do much Hey.
Hey,
I didn't know.
I'm really, you cheated us out of the party, I mean, you put the
Oh, treasurer, no.
Our secretary over there.
I'm a title.
you need that with
No, I was thinking you were the secretary treasurer over there now. Do you want to give it to Tom instead?
Well, Jake is still, isn't Jake still, secretary? And Carl's probably the treasurer.
I'll give it to him. I just did.
I was
For
gonna.
some reason, I thought you were the secretary treasurer.
No, Aaron asked me to do title, because I can't be there very often, because I go to all the ball games. Well, this year I'm not going for a minute. So I was gonna ask you, 1,500 was identified as sponsorship. Am I supposed to put we go into the general fund, or we go into the air conditioning fund, or see, you give us 1,500 with it. You know, we'll check with it. There's no 1,500, it just says sponsorship. Well, I don't do this, where you want to put it. If, you know, our budget's about $1,800 since we lost our Eastern Star. And I recognize you don't want to, unless you want to do that anonymously, but we could put half of the general fund and half in the air conditioning. Or we could put, you know, that's your school.
I think
Did you leave notes you did, or whoever did?
And I just told him to take care of it. Do it, and I think I know what she was thinking, so. Holler at me.
And I haven't talked to Angie. When I got it, I said, "God, that's a pleasant surprise."
Yeah.
But I didn't open it up and take a look. So it was that sponsorship, but I didn't know what.
I think I know what she was doing, so.
I'll stop by as I leave.
Holler at me, yeah.
Okay.
And well, I think I know what she read my mind.
I mean, we're open.
Yep. Yep. Oh, Mr. Knight. All your trucks make it through the storms, okay?
Yes, sir. Everybody's home.
Everybody's home?
Everybody's home.
You know what? We didn't end up getting it very bad at all, really, around here anyway.
My brother gave me, said, they had 6-7 inches up there.
Did they really? Wow.
Just a trip from like, just north of the lake.
There was just kind of that band that came through where it came through really hard.
We was down in Joplin Saturday. Now they got another inch of snow Saturday.
Did they really? We got a little bit, but it was just like for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like my wife and I was sitting at the house there and she's like, oh, I didn't know it was supposed to snow today. I looked out and it, pretty decent little snow, but it didn't last 20 minutes
Yeah.
and stuff. But, you know, we can't really complain. It's been a pretty mild winter. We needed the moisture.
Oh, God, we needed it bad. I hate seeing rain in the wintertime because it's mud from there on out.
It is.
Dry time.
It doesn't dry out and it just stays soupy.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, where we built our house is just a mud pit.
How long ago did you build?
3 years ago, but I've been doing some re-landscaping it. And,
It should be 15 years of that.
yeah, well, what I'm waiting on is the NRCS office. came out because we have a problem with water runoff on the bean field there and from the land we bought and the way they have their terraces. But the way I did it, I backed water up on the crop ground too, and I didn't want to do that. So NRCS came out and looked at it, and they gave us a recommendation on how to do it by putting like basically a water dike system in, like a waterway in which the terraces could drain down into it, and it would divert the water. How are they gonna pay for 70% of it? I didn't know they had such a program. They're like, oh yeah, we'll pay for 70%. I said, okay, well, how much is that gonna be then, just so I know? They said, oh, well, you probably have to come up with a couple $100 for seeding it with grass, grass seed. The rest of it, it's not that big a deal, a little dirt work and boom, and it's done. I said, oh shit, I didn't know about this years ago. So they came out and surveyed it and drew it all out. And
Yeah, while you're out there, they got the grass seeder out there, you might as well just run over your yard.
there you go. I told them, I said, I bought a small grass seeder when I when I was doing some work out there. And I don't think it's big enough. I think it needs to be, like you said, a big enough grass seeder behind a little tractor to really put it in the ground good and to seed that waterway really good. And then just have, because I gotta rework my dirt work because of the way they're gonna run that waterway through there. I've got a shit ton of dirt to move.
That's nice to have though.
Robert Harkrader and I can't think of the other gal's name come out and look at it. Like, what's that big a deal? I'm like, it's a big deal to me because I get a lot of water runoff and then I try to fix it and I think I made it worse because now the water backs up on the crop ground, in the low spots along the terrace, and there's a lot of water gets backed up, and I hate that because it kills the crops. And luckily, Jody Hood is who I bought the land from. It's her farm ground, and Greg Murray's awesome. He's just a great guy. So I told her what, she was like, "Oh, sounds like a winner. Just get it done." I'm like, so I'm on the list, but right now dirt work is you're on the list to get it done. With old Mike Schmidt, getting Mike to do it, because Mike did my lagoon and everything, and he'd come out and it'll take him probably longer to unload the equipment and do everything than to actually do the work. He said it wouldn't take him a half a day. He'd be in and out. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, but it's gonna dry out. I said, yep, because there's a lot of water and a lot of mud. That's the downside this time of year, especially when it warms up.
It just makes it
a soupy mess.
I need to try to get in and work it, you try to get in and work it, and just
Make it worse. Make big old mud balls, and it just makes it a lot worse. Might as well just let it dry out. The NRCS office said, we don't care, just you're on the list and the money's earmarked, so just whenever he can get to it. And I said, well, I think it needs to dry out quite a bit. Otherwise, we're gonna have a muddy mess, and then you can't really plant seed grass. When you got big old clumps, So hopefully we get it done.
Take care, Randy.
All right, be good.
Dig in, Jesse.
I don't know if there's anything in here I'll eat.
There's cookies in there.
About 5 inches.
A little bit more, that's pretty normal.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping, I know he didn't want nothing, but he should have.
You a break? Yep. Continuous.
Well, how you doing?
Been good, been busy.
Yeah.
Oh, you're already making
Official next week.
No, I guess. Get it going anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
How much snake we got for him?
I
was gone with that.
Had some stuff they said.
Friday morning, went down to Joplin. Stayed out there the weekend. They have some rice down there. Yeah, they have to
Well, it's spotty, you know, I mean, there'd be parts would be snow and then the parts would be ice and snow. But they look like they had a, well, down around that Chanute area, probably quarter, inch of ice. And then we got down there closer to Baxter Spring, it looked like they probably had about a half inch of ice. So actually, we was meeting electrical crews coming back up my head. No. I saw that they had Burlington 3 inches of snow. I kind of wondered if some areas were less than that. I think it's close to what we had, 3 or 4. Yeah, I was still snowing when we left, so Houston had a little bit more snow than Burlington. Yeah, I grabbed it loose. Well, it seems like from the lake, north of the lake up towards about Burlingame, they had 6, 7 inches up there.
Yeah, I thought I saw where Osage had 7 to 9 inches or something like that. Osage City.
Pretty little home for salt. Yeah, pretty good. We've all more salt to Oklahoma, West Oklahoma, and Panhandle, and West Texas is even home to Kansas.
Really? That's been all down there.
Yeah, they've been hit 4 times down there.
Denver temperatures are supposed to stay a little bit above normal, I think.
I went there Wednesday night and Thursday, maybe have some other chances of snow. Coming in.
I don't mind it if we get it and then it disappears.
If it's gonna be cold, I want snow, but if it's not, if it ain't snow on the ground, I just assume it'd be 60 degrees. Go out and then out some of that coyotes.
No, I'm in it for it.
I saw that agenda, saw it was kind of short. I was like, wonder what you got coming up with. Keep going until then.
I didn't come back for Thursday.
I had a new meeting and then I come over here right after that. Tom and Dawn, they were going to the parking lot already. So
Oh, really?
I ended up just watching it all morning.
Yeah.
Watched your recording.
Yeah.
Good for something.
I gotta figure out this damn Zoom thing, so I got the county or the state commission deals. So I'm not very computer savvy.
They'll send you an email, in a minute, there should be a link. You click it, it'll open something, you have to download it. You get it installed, and it's pretty simple, just join.
I went and popped on Google Zoom and went in, downloaded it, but it just brought up, like one meeting, one idea. Of course, it needed account numbers and all sorts of stuff.
It worked.
They'll send you links, and you click on that, okay. Yeah, get this show started.
So a quick call that they get up in the legal area.
Yeah.
And then they just got on our water tower there in East Strong too, so they're working pretty fast. Try to cover copies.
Yeah, they're right there down at Iowa, I think, where they're based out of, isn't it?
Thing is, they won't cover the Oregon, like TeleXP does.
Right.
They're on the same towers. You can't get it down.
Yeah. Makes for a little more competition.
More competition, and that's not gonna happen, no.
We had glitches up there at Lebo. I'll get emails to their generator for the offices. It's on internet too, and so it sends an email when it loses connection. I'll get emails saying they've lost connection, but that's always times when we're away from the office. It's not working, and so we don't know it, but we just have little glitches, nothing widespread than what we had previously with the other supplier. They was I did have a phone number for Independence. I could call them, get directly into somebody. I'll call them and they'll say, no, I haven't got any outage or report. I said, well, I'm reporting you. He gets on there and he pings it. Well, sure enough, it's out. Because we're always like, well, shut your router off, let it reboot, and then you gotta go in and shut the power off to the radio, let it reboot, and we do all that before the call. Yeah, it's like I've already done all that.
How are you, Jesse?
Good, yourself?
Good. Did you have a good holiday?
Yes, I'm glad it's all over with. Yep, yeah. I'm not a Christmas holiday person.
So this is for your badge in emergency management.
Okay.
And then, so just fill out the parts that she has highlighted
Okay.
with a red pen.
Okay.
And then you can go in with her and turn that in
Okay.
to Chelsea, and she'll take a picture to her and get you.
Oh, joy. Witness protection program. I was wondering about that. You know, I mean, as the, what I've done in like, tornadoes, you know, it didn't matter if you have that or not. If you was not an authority present, there's even commissioners that was coming in Lyon County. I want to come up to them. Want to call them, they would allow them, and even, you know, as a fire department, you know, or I was on the fire department and going up there to respond to help clean it. They'd come back, and that's what I was wondering on the commission side, if they have badges or what actual badges, or if they have something that would clear you into an emergency area.
Oh, I don't know about that.
If so, if you
They could probably answer that question. Mhm. Yeah, good question.
I can't read.
Yeah, I know what you mean, I got the same problem.
And south side of Wichita, and then hit every minute. I had my insurance license at the time, and we wanted to get to the home parents, and that's all we got. My insurance license, flashed my insurance license, and I was going to.
Back. Did I ask you if you had anything for round table? And you don't? Anybody else have anything? Yeah, that's where I'm at. Then I will request an executive session for, what do you think, 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
I bet 30.
Okay, Don wants 30 minutes to discuss hiring of emergency management director. I'm making that motion.
Second.
Don seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We will go in at 11:35. 12:05.
So, did you come to the conclusion?
No. Well, that's, next week, is just to initially talk about what we're on.
So, yeah,
I just have a blank one. What they do.
Donna, those emails I gave you, For the Zoom, for the county, for the state deal, did you use, Jesse@nighttrucking.net, or did you use the Gmail?
They haven't,
For the email, they would send me link.
so when I enrolled you off of my email address, you and Tim.
Okay,
So when I get something, I can forward it to you.
okay. If it's anything for like that, I'd want that to go to my
The Gmail.
trucking.
Oh, trucking,
Yeah, because what I'll do, I'll watch it at the office.
okay,
That one I don't go anywhere. And just go to the office and watch, because I think
Okay.
some of them are in the evening,
yes,
which I got good Wi-Fi there, so
okay,
big screen,
Okay.
so.
sounds good.
But none of that's interactive, is it? It's just,
No,
it's
there
just,
was like a couple of sections on that agenda where it said that it would be interactive,
Mhm.
but for the most part,
It's just sit and watch, listen, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
you bet.
Where do I gotta take this to? Just
To
around-
Chelsea in the emergency management
Okay.
office, they're on the right.
Past the little, okay, that's.
Yeah,
How in the world did Nancy Pelosi get revoted in?
What's that?
How did Nancy Pelosi get revoted in?
She did.
Isn't that Schumer? I tell you, yeah, I don't know. Tells her I don't know. He's on the Republican. I know. Well, shit. Look what they did to the election. You know this is gonna be.
You know what I learned?
Thought there'd be an uproar. I think they're holding up. I shot with the state trooper, a couple of weekends ago. He's a sniper. He talked to his sister. She lives out in DC. And that was on a Saturday. And Friday, she called me and said they started boarding up businesses in DC. I think they did all this as a smear. I think Trump actually got elected, but to satisfy the riots and everything else. Of course, they didn't want Trump. So to satisfy that, they kind of did this. I think they're going under the table. And then January 6th is when it's going to be the inauguration of where it's going. I think that's what it's all about. And then we don't know what's going to happen. I think they have to prepare. Have time to prepare. Well, there's a bunch of problem employees, or, just patriots basically, that flying to DC, for a big march. And I heard the Capitol had one too. So there's been a lot of people that can't go to DC is going to the Capitol. The 6th, on inauguration day. So they're supposed to be doing something up there. What did they say? 5th. Tomorrow, isn't it? Till is today. Today's the 4th, so that's Wednesday. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that would be, I had people call me, I said I was gonna go to DC, I just can't do crowds. I would fly to DC, but I guess now the airlines are starting to shut flights down in DC because. Yeah. So, let's see. But we know there's people that's gonna vote against the electoral college. So, if they have objections, that has to go 100%. But if there's any objections, it's done. Then they go, well, I understand, but then they go back and vote. Each state has a representative, and the House or Senate, and Republicans are heavy on that. But you got these rhinos in there that are Republican, but they're coming more on the Democratic side. So those are the ones you got to worry about.
Yeah.
That's going to vote against the Republicans, vote for Trump. So I don't know if that's. It's going to be interesting to see what the outcome is. Yeah, we can keep you posted. So, and as I'm talking with that trooper, I said, have you guys been, you can tell me maybe you don't have to. I said, I've got my thing of what's going to go on. And he said, well, really keep saying that. So I told him kind of what I was thinking about. He said, I think you're along the right path. And so I hope that. Yeah. Burn the city down. Yeah. But we'd go to prison.
Oh, yeah.
Not in a heartbeat. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Do we have any ages on these applicants?
No. It's one of those questions you can't ask.
Well, date of birth, there's ways to put it in there. They have not voted on these yet. Just down to 2.
No, the 2 most recent, that they received, they never really shut down the date. Deadline.
Oh, for acceptance.
So they're still coming in, but.
But haven't they already met with somebody?
But they won't be.
Oh, so
From what you guys.
anytime they don't really want me to- Oh, really? Too many chiefs. I like this guy. I mean, he was just doing something. And he's from Alabama, not Washington. Just saying. Exactly. Lord. That's good.
Yeah.
Exactly what that.
No, we're all back.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that we make an offer for the emergency management director to Carl Lee upon the acceptance of an agreement on salary and so forth.
Bob's moved,
I'll second.
second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, aye. Motion passes 4-0.
4-1.
4-1, excuse me.
Who was the one? You voted no?
Do we have anything else?
I don't have anything else, Tom.
Don't have anything else?
And Wendy?
Oh.
Wait a minute, sorry. I had a note and I forgot to bring it down. Judge Wayne will do the swearing in a little after 8 next week.
Okay.
But it has to be outside by the flagpole to accommodate social distancing or he won't do it.
Okay. Well, weather permitting then.
We are not getting sworn in. We can stand inside and watch out the window.
So we'll start the meeting here and then go out.
Correct. We'll approve the minutes and then we'll break for swearing. Executive session.
And you also, Tom and I can stand inside and watch through the window because we are not getting sworn in.
Jesse knows we're gonna be here next week.
And I'll make sure that Tom knows and anyone else.
You'll let all the other department heads and
Yeah.
elected, they are.
With that, we'll adjourn at 12:09.
You want to sit down?